The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guests today are Theonie Anastassiadis and Stephen Eichhorn. Theonie and Stephen are senior leadership at a company named Alltrna. Theonie, Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So guys, let's start with yourself, please, as we do all of our guests. I want to get a very quick overview of your background in technology, what your journey has been, and what's led you to where you are today as senior leaders within the business Alltrna. Theonie, we'll start with yourself, please. Could you give us a quick summary of your journey today and what's led you to where you are as one of the co-founders at Alltrna?
My name's Theonie Anastassiadis. I'm a senior principal at Flagship Pioneering, and I'm co-founder and chief innovation officer at Alltrna. I've been at Flagship Pioneering for over 6 years now, and I work as part of a team to conceive and build bioplatform companies that hope to transform human health. Before that, I was getting my PhD in cancer biology at the University of Pennsylvania, studying how to therapeutically target DNA replication fork dynamics in cancer. I was actually originally on the academic path, and Flagship came to recruit at Penn, and I was just really fascinated by their model of venture creation, really impressed by the caliber of people that were there, and particularly driven by the idea of being able to do cutting-edge biology while having very high impact on patient care. So took the leap and have been very excited to be part of this adventure since.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Stephen, over to yourself.
Sure. I'm Stephen Eichhorn. I'm a principal scientist here at Alltrna, and I head up a team in our computational and molecular biology group. And I came to Alltrna a bit over 3 years ago. It was my first position outside of academia. I had done a PhD and then an academic postdoc up until then. And yeah, like Theonie said, was interested in transitioning to industry to really leverage the scale and depth of resources and the intellectual quality that we had growing at Alltrna to really make a difference for patients.
Theonie, coming back to yourself, we want to talk about all things Alltrna, but in order to really set the stage, I think we should spend a little bit of time explaining who Flagship Pioneering are as a parent group. We've had some of the other Flagship Pioneering businesses on the show in the past, so it might be familiar to some of our audience, but for those listening not familiar, tell us who Flagship Pioneering are as an organization, first of all, and then explain how that then segues into Alltrna as a new business.
So Flagship Pioneering creates resources and builds companies that are bioplatform technologies that will transform human health and sustainability. And we have this unique hypothesis-driven innovation process that helps originate and grow these bioplatform companies that center around technology or a biology platform that can create many products that then can launch. And using this process, we've created over 100 companies, with one of the best knowns being Moderna. And it is out of this process that Alltrna originated.
So thank you, Theonie. That's really helpful. So that sets the stage then for you to tell us all about Alltrna. Within the space that you're operating in, who are Alltrna? What's the mission of the business?
Yeah, so Alltrna is a tRNA platform company that is unlocking tRNA biology to treat diseases. And at Alltrna, our platform uses machine learning to systematically learn how to design and program tRNA molecules with desired therapeutic properties so that we can turn them into medicines. So you might wonder what tRNAs are. And so in order to answer that question, I'll take you to a biology central dogma, which states that information flows from DNA, which is then transcribed into mRNA and then translated into protein. And proteins are the effectors of the cell that carry out cellular functions. And mRNAs and proteins are actually written in two different languages. So to be able to translate that mRNA information into protein, you need to have a decoder between them. And that's what tRNA or transfer RNA does. So tRNAs are these adapter molecules that will read the mRNA code and incorporate the corresponding protein building blocks, which are called amino acids, into the protein chain as it's being made. And we got really excited about what we thought was this overlooked molecule, because if you can turn tRNAs into medicines, you can actually control that translation step in the central dogma. And this is really important because patients with genetic diseases have a mutation or a mistake in their DNA and mRNA, which then causes a mutated protein to be translated, and those mutated proteins don't function properly, which causes disease. So if we can design tRNA molecules that can actually read that mutation or that mistake, and instead of translating that mistake into the protein, you can actually put the right protein building block at that site, making that protein functional and then treating the disease. And this is particularly game-changing and unique feature of this modality, is that instead of treating genetic diseases by replacing the whole gene or the whole mRNA or the whole protein, like replacement therapies, we can actually engineer our tRNAs so that they're treating a specific mutation, no matter which gene it affects or where along the gene it's found, which means that just a single tRNA medicine can treat hundreds of different diseases that have that same underlying mutation.
So Theonie, a lot of our audience do have some overlapping background in the biotech and pharma space. But for those who don't, what you're describing sounds incredibly complex. I want to help our audience understand what this will mean in real life terms. Using the description that you've just given, can you explain to us or maybe give us an example of how this is going to change treatment in healthcare from what we're experiencing today to what it would be down the line when this is more readily available, whether it's due to a particular illness or any example that you can think of which would best demonstrate how this is going to improve treatment for patients?
So a good way of thinking about this is patients classically are treated based on the gene that is affected in that patient. And for example, you will have patients that have hemophilia because that hemophilia gene is affected, or who have an acidemia, or who have cystic fibrosis, for example, which are commonly known rare genetic diseases. In today's world, the way that we treat these different patients are actually by targeting that gene specifically. So either you would do gene replacement therapies, you might deliver an mRNA, you might replace the protein that is non-functional. What Alltrna is able to do, as I mentioned, is we're really focusing on a specific mutation, and that is what is being targeted. And so in patients that have that mutation, whether that mutation is in the cystic fibrosis gene or in the hemophilia gene or in methylmalonic acidemia, for example, that same tRNA medicine will be used across these different patients, as opposed to having to treat patients with 3 different drugs that target the gene. But if these 3 different diseases have the same underlying mutation, we are actually able to use the same tRNA molecule. And so if you actually expand these 3 different diseases across hundreds and thousands of rare genetic disease which exists, since there's over 6,000 different rare genetic diseases, you're now able to classify patients based on that underlying mutation and treat all of these different patients with a single tRNA medicine.
And just to build on what Theonie's described, one of the things that we're most excited about in considering the ability to take this one medicine and treat many different diseases is the fact that we'll be able to help patients who are part of more ultra rare disease populations, right? And so there are thousands of rare diseases, and very few of them represent opportunities for traditional drug development because the number of patients are just too small. Right. And so our ability to expand into these chronically underserved populations really represents one of the ways that we can transform the treatment of rare genetic diseases.
That point is so important. It could easily be lost on the audience, but if you've ever had a friend or family member, someone close to you who has a rare disease, and you're looking for clinical trials, a lot of the money and investment in clinical trials are focused on the big, well-known illnesses, cancer, oncology, things like that. So when you're looking for advanced treatments for something that's a rare disease, there's less experimental treatment available because a lot of the investment is going to tackle the big. So that is so critical. I think it's very exciting development.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
Theonie, I want to now segue into AI, because a lot of what you're talking about today has just been purely on the science side, but AI is intertwined in all of what you do to help with this research code. So can you explain to us where AI and data science fits into what you're doing?
I think our platform would actually be very difficult to build without AI. And one of the reasons for this is that as humans, we have over 400 different tRNAs that have each unique sequences that are on average 75 nucleotides long. And those can be modified by over 100 different types of modifications. And changes in both sequence and modification can actually alter tRNA's function and property. So to be able to actually turn tRNAs into a medicine, you need to understand how the sequence and modifications interplay with each other to be able to program in therapeutic features into these tRNAs. So the combinatorial space is actually larger than the number of atoms in the universe. And so you can't physically screen all of these molecules despite our amazing automation team here at Alltrna. And so that's where we actually need to turn to machine learning to help us systematically probe and reduce this search space. And Stephen is going to dive deeper into how we use AI in our platform with what we believe is to be the first application of AI/ML in the field of tRNA.
So the major area that we're applying AI is in supporting the engineering of our tRNAs. And as Theonie has described already, tRNAs are natural molecules, but the focus at Alltrna is turning them into medicines, right? And to do that, we need to engineer tRNAs to have therapeutic properties. For example, we need to make them more stable or more potent or more specific. And the way that we're doing that is by precisely determining the nucleotide sequence that composes them, as well as then the chemical modifications that we layer on top of that. And the challenge here, fundamentally the engineering challenge, is just that this is a huge, effectively infinite landscape to explore of engineering possibilities. And it's made somewhat more challenging by the fact that it's not just one property or parameter that we're trying to engineer. It's really multiple properties that we're jointly optimizing. Right. And so one of the really exciting decisions Alltrna made from really its outset has been to build towards an AI-enabled platform with a really early focus on assay development and lab automation to really support the data volume and quality that's needed for AI to really make a difference in our engineering process. And so we've been able to then take this growing database of measurements we have on engineered tRNAs, develop models and exploration algorithms that let us effectively search a pretty vast, but still admittedly small fraction of the theoretically possible landscape in silico, so that we can then use that information to guide our decisions about what we then take and test in the lab, right? And this strategy of using AI-enabled design is what we're doing to really develop tRNAs into a class of programmable therapeutics, one where we can define the performance characteristics that we need from our molecule, and then use these design algorithms to really rapidly and effectively achieve that target. We had an opportunity at a couple scientific conferences earlier this year to discuss some of what we've been able to achieve through these AI-enabled design approaches. And I'll turn it back to Theonie to go over some of what we were able to disclose.
In May of this year, we had the opportunity to present at scientific conferences data that showed that we could use our platform to significantly improve therapeutic properties of tRNAs, both through sequence optimization as well as through chemical modification optimization. And we showed that in cellular models of rare genetic disease and oncology, as well as in a mouse model of rare genetic disease, that we could use the same tRNA molecule to correct a mutation no matter what gene was affected or where in the gene that mutation occurred.
So based on the successes that you've had and what you were able to present, when you start to look at the roadmap ahead, assuming you guys can continue to build on this success, what potential impact is that going to have for Alltrna over the next 2 to 3 years? What are you excited about for the road ahead? What milestones are you working towards?
Our first frontier, so as I mentioned, Flagship builds bioplatform companies, and Alltrna is really all about tRNAs, so Alltrna. So there's a lot of different applications that we can go after using this novel tRNA modality. And so our first frontier is to apply tRNA medicines to premature termination codons, or PTCs, which are also known as nonsense mutations or stop codons. And what these mutations do is they're found in the gene body, and that causes early translation. So you prematurely stopped the production or generation of the protein, which causes a truncated protein product, and that causes a disease. So at Alltrna, using our ML platform, we're basically engineering tRNAs to recognize that stop codon and allow the tRNA to continue translating the protein so that we can make a whole protein and treat the disease. And again, reemphasizing really the importance and power of this modality is that because, again, we are treating the stop codon and not the gene that stop codon is found in specifically, we can treat and classify patients not by the disease or gene that they have, but actually by the mutation that they hold, allowing us to use a single tRNA to treat hundreds of diseases with the same underlying mutation, which we're coining stop codon disease.
So I want to finish talking about the team that you've assembled today, the working environment, the culture, and why that's been so fundamental in what you've been able to build. We were talking about your origins and how you landed Flagship Pioneering and subsequently co-founded Alltrna. In the space that you're operating in, advanced biotech utilizing AI and ML, it's incredibly competitive for talent. There's a lot of organizations trying to build products and services. So to attract talent is something that's critically important. Can you describe the team, the environment, the culture, and give our audience a bit of a look behind the scenes as to what it would be like working at Alltrna?
So first of all, I feel very fortunate that we have such a wonderful team here at Alltrna. Not only are they scientifically so rigorous and curious, but they really have a passion for helping patients. And we do showcase some of our employees on our social media. So we encourage you to check that out as they talk a little bit about what it's like to work at Alltrna. But one of the really exciting things to see over time, over the last couple of years as Alltrna has grown, is to see that we're building more diverse teams with diverse set of experiences and expertise, which actually force us to rely on incredibly good communication, trust in each other's work and expertise to drive projects forward, and to foster a very collaborative culture where our efforts are completely matrixed between these different teams. But maybe I'll invite Stephen, since you've helped Bill and work very closely with the ML team, to comment further on what it's been like.
So my team is a multidisciplinary team, and it's been really exciting to build it as really a deeply integrated group, one where we have people across a lot of different disciplines working together to produce something that's really at the intersection or boundary of what we would otherwise be able to achieve. And I think having folks who are really committed to this interdisciplinary approach has led to really a lot of exciting science, and is definitely one of the motivators or exciting factors about working here is the ability to really leverage your colleagues to achieve things that otherwise wouldn't be possible if we were to create more strict boundaries around the type of domain knowledge that a team might have.
So Stephen, sticking with you, when you look at the roadmap ahead, the work that you guys have to do over the next 2 years, particularly focusing on the AI sciences aspect, what growth do you expect to see? Are you looking to add more personnel? And if so, what types of people will you be looking to bring in?
we're excited and are planning to continue growing our ML team, but also just generally our tRNA design team in the new year. And in thinking about machine learning or data science in particular, really continuing to add and build on our strength in generative AI is going to be one of our focuses going forward.
Final question for me then, and Theonie, I'll come back to yourself on this one. As the co-founder there, you obviously shape the direction of the business. You're very much hands-on in all aspects. But one of the key parts of what you do is building and cultivating a great team of talented people who match the culture that you're trying to shape. When you're speaking to people about Alltrna, particularly candidates, potential future employees, when you're talking about Alltrna, what is it that you tell them about the mission, the impact, the environment, the work that gets them excited enough to join you guys over some of the other great companies hiring?
It's a combination of the really cutting edge science that we're doing. We are discovering a lot about tRNA molecules, which, as I mentioned, had been overlooked. And so a lot of the technology that we're developing and knowledge about how tRNAs work is at the front and cutting edge of the field. And then paired with the impact that this modality can have on patient care, as we alluded to earlier in the podcast, being able to redefine our approach to treating diseases and hopefully being able to provide treatment for patients that have no or limited treatment options available to them. And then on top of that, in an environment that is collaborative with really brilliant people that are also extremely kind, that make it incredibly fun to show up to work and tackle challenges in a team setting where we're constantly learning from each other and can bring our best selves to work.
Stephen, Theonie, thank you both so much for coming on the show today and talking to us. It's fascinating to learn about all the advancements that are happening in science and how AI and ML is really pushing the envelope on what's possible. It's great to learn that there are companies like you guys who are really trying to tackle the rare disease space because it's very much underserved. And it's exciting to see what success you're having and how it can translate to advanced treatments for anyone out there who's struggling with a rare disease or illness. So we wish you, the team, and everyone at Alltrna the best of luck in the months and years to come. And we very much look forward to having you back on the show in the near future.
Thanks so much for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.